Happy Father's Day. Every year around this time, I think about Father's Day and I just what it means and just the whole concept of it. And I guess there's a part of me that always wish that. In fact, I'm envious of people who had dads who really showed up for them or who really were integral parts of their lives and really loved them and wanted them and went that extra mile and went the distance for them because I wasn't that fortunate. It's like, I had a father in the sense of the word, but what he was and what it encompassed was, well, bordered on insanity. Uh, I think, as I pointed out before, my mom and dad, that marriage, I just did not, I never understood it because it seemed like such a loveless marriage. I don't know whether it was a marriage of opportunity, a marriage of reason. I don't know whether. No, well, I know she wasn't pregnant, so that wasn't the cause for it. But it's just that my father never. There were four of us. There were four of us kids. Uh, we're all two girls and two boys. All of us, our names start with G. All of us four letters. Strange, but the thing that I just he just never seemed like he really wanted us or wanted to be a part of our lives. You have to do a little history. You have to understand that at that time, you were expected when you were coming through to get married, have kids, get a house, and set up shop. And he got married and he had the kids. But I think once he saw what it entailed, just the responsibility of it was overwhelming for him. So he opted out. He was never really around. And when he was around, it was just in such a negative way. He was never really there for her. And at some point, my mom, realized that if this was going to work, she was going to have to dig in and make it work on her own. So I thank God for that. And I pointed out, yeah, even though I did have problems with my mom, I'm glad she went that mile and she stayed with us and she didn't abandon us because had she abandoned us, I don't know what would have become of us. Uh, my relationship with my father was fearful. I don't ever remember a comfortable moment in Daddy's presence. I was always so afraid that whatever I would say or do would warrant a dirty look or a slap or a hit or a beating or just a barrage of negativisms of just constantly just tearing me down just emotionally as a person. And I remember how hard I tried to make him like me or to love me, and it didn't work. He was just never around. And there were just so many instances and episodes that I can recall. And I guess the most one of the most traumatizing was when I was in kindergarten. I was 5 years old, and I was in class, and I had to use the bathroom. And I remember begging the teacher that I had to go, and she wouldn't let me go because she said, too many kids are going to the bathroom, so you can't go. So, consequently, I sat there and I shit on myself. And when she found out, I finally came up to her, just in my pants, and she was furious. She snatched me up, took me to the bathroom, and cleaned me off, and brought me back. And then my father showed up to pick me up from school, and she lied. She just out and outright lied on me. She said, your son has a problem. He had to use the bathroom, and he wouldn't tell me, and he went on himself, and you need to speak to him about that. And my father just looked at me with this look of rage, and I'm thinking, that's not how it went down. And I remember him getting me home and beating the shit out of me. I got the whooping, boy, I got the worst beating for that. And it wasn't my fault. And then after that, I didn't like my kindergarten teacher. I wouldn't look at her. I didn't want anything to do with her. And I really had trust issues after that. But that's another story for another time. But, so many episodes. My daddy ran numbers. My daddy was a hustler. When the first three kids were born, my daddy was a hustler. I mean, he had all kinds of odd jobs that he couldn't keep because he was absent all the time, or he was late all the time, or he just was inept and incompetent. So he lost these jobs. So he hustled. And one of the hustles my daddy had was he ran numbers. I don't know if maybe that may be foreign to a lot of people, but he would go around and he would collect numbers from people. It was gambling. It was illegal gambling. He would go around and he would collect numbers from people. And then he'd turn these numbers in. And then the number would hit. And then based on the number you played and the illegal numbers, you win an X amount of money. Well, I remember that one summer when my older brother and sister were in school, I rode around with Daddy as he went to pick up numbers. And I guess the police were following us because they were like watching his activity going from house to house. And the next thing I knew, the sirens were going and the police were after us. And we were in this old beat up Mercury, the Red Arrow. I'll never forget it. He called it the Red Arrow. And he told me to get down, get down. So I was in the back seat on the floor. And he was like speeding and going up alleys. And it was like, it was high speed chasing. It was crazy. It was like, I'm like this 6-year-old kid. I'm like, should be subjected to this. And we gave him the slip. We got away from the police. We didn't get caught. It was just the idea. I'm like, what the fuck is this, man? It's like, what does my daddy do? And I remember he used to go to this lady named Miss Bonds. She was a bootlegger. She had a still in her backyard with the coil, and she made the white lighting in the back, and we'd go in the back, and they would ply me up with a lot of soda, and they would go in the back, and they would drink this hooch, this moonshine, and he'd come out, and he was just fucked up beyond belief. And then we'd get in the car, and then he'd drive me home, and I look back on that, and I was like, by the grace of God, we weren't killed, because he was so drunk behind that. So many times we got home, I didn't even think about it at the time, but there were no seatbelts. Seatbelts weren't the law then. So we got home. I'm just like, it was just crazy. Oh, fast forward. My mom got pregnant. Like 10 years after me, my mom got pregnant, and I'm sure it was a mistake. It wasn't, given the state of their marriage at that time. My mom got pregnant with my younger sister, and she had to stop working. And now, mind you, my mother was the sole support at this time, so my daddy had to get a job. So he got a job driving a cab, and that's what he did for the rest of his life until he retired from working. He drove a cab, and it was rough. It was rough because it was like he'd make money, but the money he made and the money he brought home were like two different things. It was like I don't know. It was just weird to me. It was just, wow, here you've got this family, but you just refuse to be a part of this family. So you just, he stayed. It was like, we all wish he would just leave or go away, but he wouldn't go away. He stayed. And my mother would never get away, never like put him out. And I think I understand. My father was mentally was unbalanced, because there was a time in their relationship when they were separated, and she moved back home, and he stalked her. He followed her everywhere she went, and I'm thinking, my God, given all this history, why are you still with this man, buddy? That's all I can say. I mean, I have theories, but we don't have the time. This continued on. It just continued on until I guess he and I reached an apex. And through my whole life, no Christmases, no birthdays. When I graduated from high school, never did. Then all the events, all the milestones in my life that a father should show up for a child, they weren't there. I think the last ditch effort I made was I said, I'm gonna really, really try hard. So back then, kids could go buy cigarettes. You didn't have to be 21 and over to buy cigarettes. So I went and got him a carton of Parliament cigarettes, which is the brand he smoked, and I got him a Father's Day card. And I presented it to him on Father's Day. And he kind of looked at the card, he looked at the cigarettes, and kind of like, oh, okay, and just kind of threw them to the side. I was like, wow. So my heart just sank. I was like, well, I tried. And I went back later, and the card was ripped in half. It was thrown in the garbage. The cigarettes were gone, of course, but that kind of did it for me. And about a year later, he came home drunk one night and just went off on me, and just angry. Just came home drunk and angry, and I just wasn't in that space, and he went off on me. He just called me useless and a bum, and just, you know. I just told him, leave me alone, man. Just go away, man. You know, you're drunk. Go sleep it off. Just, just get away from me. He looked at me. His eyes got real wide. He ran to the kitchen. He got a knife, and he came back, and he pulled the knife right at me. In fact, he brought it right up to me, like almost like up to my face. He said, get out now. And I was like, what? He said, get out. And my mother like said, what's going on? She came downstairs, and she saw what he was doing. She said, Greg, just get out. Go over to Mama's. Just go over to Mama's. And it was like 10 o'clock on a summer night. I ran out of the house. I had on a T-shirt, some pants, some flip-flops, and I had bus fare. And I ran up to Mack Avenue, and I got the bus, and I went over to my grandmother's house. And I don't know whether you mentioned this or not before. I remember there must have been a blackout in my grandmother's neighborhood. And I'll always remember that. When I got off the bus, I walked up the street. There were no street lights, but all I could hear were voices of people on the porch. They were smoking cigarettes. I could see the little red buds from where they were smoking the cigarettes. And it was just the eeriest, the most scariest feeling of my life. And I remember getting to my grandmother's house. And I remember sitting on the couch, and I was like heaving. I was just going up and down and just breathing. And she asked me, are you okay? And I told her, no, I'm not. And my uncles were there, and they kind of watched me. And everybody kind of went to bed and went their separate ways. And I just sat on the couch all night. I couldn't sleep. I just wide awake. And I woke up the next morning. I guess I finally fell asleep. And I woke up, and my mom came over with some of my stuff. And I said, what's this? She said, are you going to be here for a while? I said, be here for a while? What do you mean? She said, I don't think you should come back home now. And that really bummed me. I was like, wow. I guess there were just a lot of things because one, he put me out. Two, you let him do it. Three, the fact that he's there and I'm over here means you chose him over me. Given the circumstances and the dynamics, that was baffling. At the time, I just felt just thrown away totally. But, long story short, in hindsight, that was a blessing because had that not happened to me, I don't think I would have grown the way I grew that year. I became so self-reliant and so self-sufficient, and I found a job. I had to leave school. I literally, unasked, I became an adult at a very, very young age. I mean, I was like 19 at the time, but I grew up, man. I grew up. I got busy, and I never looked back. Oh, fast forward, since this is such a long story. The last time I saw my father alive, I was over, by then my mother and father had divorced, and he had moved in with my grandmother, and his health had really, really declined. And I went to see him, and I'll never forget, it was a Sunday, and I walked in, and he saw me. And he saw me in this field of vision, but he would not turn and look at me. And I walked up, and I said, hey, Daddy. And he kind of looked up at me. He said, hey, mister. He didn't even call me by my name. It was mister. He said, you're looking good. I said, I'm just, trying to keep it together. And he could never look at me the entire visit. Every time he looked away, he looked to the ground or he'd look to the side. He would never look at me. And it was so weird. The one time I caught his eyes, it was the weirdest thing. I saw my father sitting in this chair, but I didn't see my father. I saw this spirit, and I saw the spirit inside this body and these eyes looking out. But I saw this shell that was my daddy. But it was the weirdest feeling. It wasn't my daddy. Ah, man, I'll never forget that. The weirdest thing. And I didn't feel, I wasn't angry anymore. It was just, and it was small talk, and then I said goodbye. Even fast forward, even still, my father passed away about 2 years after that. He contracted cancer, and he died at my grandmother's house. And I didn't go to the funeral. I couldn't go. I wanted no part of that. Just the sham and hypocrisy of what it was. I couldn't come to pay respects to a man that I didn't like or I didn't love. And at the time, I hated. But even fast forward still, I went to the cemetery, afterwards, and I saw his grave, and I saw the marker, and I kneeled down on the ground. I put my hand, and went across the grave, and I saw Walter, William Hendricks Jr., and the date of birth, the date of death, and it said Sergeant, United States Army, World War II. And I sat down, and I rubbed my hand, and I just sat there. And it was autumn. I'll never forget, because there was a high school nearby, and they were doing football practice. I could hear the whistle blow, I could hear the football, I could hear the calls, I could hear the cheerleaders. And I just sat there with him, and I just talked to him. I said, I wish you had loved me. I wish you had wanted me as a son as much as I wanted you as a father. I just wish you had cared, but you didn't. But as crummy as it sounds, I think you did the best you could with what you had, even though it sucked, And in my own way, I guess I love you. I don't like you, but I love you, and I've learned to let go. I can't carry this hate and this animosity with me throughout my life, because if I do, it'll keep me from doing the things that I need to do with the rest of my life. Lord's will, whatever time He allows me to have left. So, and it felt cathartic. It was like this tremendous weight was lifted off of me that day, and it's kind of where I've been ever since. I've been back in the cemetery since then, and I walk by and I look at his grave, because it's so odd. It's like as time passes, more family passes away, and I go, and it's like, and this one, but it's, oh, my daddy, Walter William Hendricks Jr., my daddy. My daddy. Wow. My daddy.